Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Blake? What? Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is here. Welcome back, everybody, for more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. We're here to talk more about Shelly Miscavige. We've been talking a lot about Shelly Miscavige lately. That's mostly because Jenna Miscavige has exploded on TikTok in the last few weeks. And one of the things that she has been talking about is her aunt, Shelly Miscavige. And so now we've already spoken a lot about this subject recently. Why are we talking about it more again this evening? For one reason, there's a blogger who writes about Scientology every single day. He considers himself to be the beat reporter on the subject of Scientology. He wants to be the go-to journalist, the go-to guy that any other journalist goes to when writing a story about Scientology, because he knows everything about Scientology. He understands Scientology better than ex-Scientologists, is what he wants you to believe. He understands Shelly Miscavige better than her own family members. And that blogger declared this week that Shelly Miscavige was a prisoner back in 2007. She knew she was a prisoner back in 2007, and she is still a prisoner today. Very, very strong words, especially considering what all of the ex-Scientologists who actually knew her have said about her. Again, most recently, Jenna Miscavige. So in order to get this started, let me play for you the very short video that Jenna Miscavige made about her aunt, Shelly. Here it is.
My name is Jenna Miscavige, and my uncle is the leader of Scientology. I escaped when I was 22. My aunt, Shelly Miscavige, hasn't been seen by anyone outside of Scientology since 2005. Leah Remini last saw her that year and then reported her missing in 2016. Since then, Where is Shelly has exploded, bringing international attention to Scientology's abuses. Most people see my Aunt Shelly as a trapped, powerless victim. I see her differently, as the Ghislaine Maxwell to my Uncle Dave's Jeffrey Epstein. She was his right-hand man, so to speak, and she was there for it all. Protecting predators, covering up child abuse and deaths, separating children from parents, and helping to build the family-destroying human trafficking cult that it is today. It was my Aunt Shelly who forbade and prevented me from communicating with my parents as a child. It was she who kept me separated from them. And when I wanted to leave, it was Shelly who ordered someone to be posted outside of my door day and night to make sure that I couldn't escape. And she ordered hours of interrogations where I was physically restrained from leaving the room, all while she was living in luxury, flying in private planes, with private chefs, with designer clothing, vacationing in the Caribbean, while being waited on hand and foot by teenagers and hobnobbing with Tom Cruise and John Travolta. She's been reported missing, but hundreds of Scientology workers live at secret bases, isolated from the world. My Aunt Shelly works at a base near Lake Arrowhead. She's reportedly been seen visiting the chiropractor, going out to the movies, going out to eat Italian food. These are all privileges far beyond what I or other Scientology workers ever had. I really appreciate everyone who asks, where is Shelly? She might be isolated from the world, but so are so many others who weren't right there building a criminal organization and abusing children alongside my Uncle Dave. They won't have a celebrity asking after them because nobody even knows who they are. I believe stopping new people from joining is the best way to throttle Scientology's efforts. People like Asmithlevin, Streets LA, and Jessica Palmadessa are getting the word out about Scientology every day. Please follow and support them so we can keep shining a light on this and prevent more people from getting sucked into this dangerous cult. My name is Jenna Miscavige.
Okay, there you go. So that's the very short video that Jenna did about Shelly Miscavige that has taken TikTok by storm and has generated a ton of interest in the subject and in Jenna herself and her story. And Jenna wrote a book. Like, Jenna's not telling her story for the first time right now. Jenna just joined TikTok for the first time right now. So Jenna's book has been I'm going to forget the year that it was published, but it's been out for a number of years, and yet this current explosion on TikTok is generating this brand new wave of interest, which is amazing. And this is just one of many videos she's posted to TikTok. This was, I think, the only one she posted that was actually about Shelly. Okay, it is not only Jenna Miscavige who has explained that Shelly's not missing, she's just in a cult. Now, Jenna is the only one who explained that not only is Shelly Miscavige not really missing, she's the Ghislaine Maxwell of Scientology. Shelly helped her husband, Dave, cover up deaths, cover up suicides, cover up rapes, cover up sexual abuse of children while being waited on hand and foot by teenage children. Okay. Shelly Miscavige is the Ghislaine Maxwell of Scientology. It is not an exaggeration. So not only is she not actually missing, but we shouldn't actually feel sorry for this woman who has enabled and helped and assisted and aided her husband turn Scientology and continue to create Scientology into what it is today and what L. Ron Hubbard started it out as, which is a family-destroying human trafficking cult. Okay? So not really missing, and also the Ghislaine Maxwell of Scientology. Okay. Even on Leah Remini's own television show, where she did an episode wholly dedicated to Shelly Miscavige, even on Leah Remini's own show, when Leah's the one who first reported her as missing, Leah and her guest explained that Shelly's not really missing, where she's working, and why she wants to be there. I'm going to play it for you. You don't have to take my word for it. I've excerpted these clips from that TV show, and these clips I used in a video that I did 4 years ago explaining this exact same thing. The title of my video from 4 years ago was called something like Why Ex-Scientologists Aren't Really Worried About Shelly Miscavige. It was something like that. Okay, let me make sure I'm sharing this properly. Let's watch this way. Make sure I got the volume up. This whole clip is only 3 minutes long. We're going to watch it all the way through. I'm going to try not to interject. Let's just watch.
So we want to hear like your perspective about her. What was it that caused her to be disappeared in the way that she has been disappeared?
Yeah, and I'm surprised it didn't happen way earlier, personally. But I mean, how did she last that long? The relationship was more she'll be assistant, not Shelly, my wife. All the guys that got close to Miscavige at one point or another couldn't take it anymore. She lasted forever, but nobody could stand it. You know what I mean? And really, if you look at the history of it, so many people dropped off. She just kept going. And I say that because I had conversations with her where I knew she didn't think much differently than you and I did.
Well, what did she think?
I think that she knew the guy, David Miscavige, was a nut.
Right.
I bet you she did something to be forced to go away. You have to decide at some point, I'm not doing this anymore. And at that point,
she would do what?
Express that she disagrees. I don't think Miscavige made her disappear. I think she had a lot to do with it.
I see what you're saying. You're saying you think she disagreed with him, and that's why she is where she is.
Said he removed me, Mike, everybody else. He didn't. At some point, we went this.
Right.
And he knew we were saying this. And I think Shelly probably did the same thing. I can't.
Okay, good. I lied. I'm going to jump in because there's like two separate points that these clips make. Okay. Those are not my words. Those are the words of Tom Vocht, as sanctioned by Leah Remini. I don't think David made his wife disappear. I think she orchestrated it. Now, that it's funny thing because words are being used here loosely. Okay. Because what Tom is really saying, what Tom, that there's something implied in Tom's statement that wouldn't be extremely evident to someone who knew nothing about Scientology or the Sea organization. That Shelly being removed from her post as David Miscavige's assistant, that was her full-time job. That Shelly being removed from her post is basically synonymous with her disappearing. But it's not disappearing like, oh no, put out an APB, a child has gone missing. It's disappearing in that she's relocated to another base. So the people who are used to seeing her won't see her anymore because she doesn't work on this base anymore. She works on another base. And also the people who are used to running into Shelly when they run into David Miscavige's entourage will no longer see Shelly in that entourage because she's no longer a part of it. Right? Okay. So anyway, Tom Vocht's own words, Tom Vocht knew Shelly their whole lives practically, worked closely with Shelly. Tom's out of the, Tom's out of Scientology, out of the Sea organization. And he says, David Miscavige didn't make his wife disappear. Shelly Miscavige orchestrated her own removal from her post, which would then result in her not being really visible anymore. Okay, let's keep going.
Can't explain why she didn't crack earlier or disappear earlier, or I think that maybe it had to be her belief in Hubbard.
Yes, we know that she's very loyal to L. Ron Hubbard because I think she considered L. Ron Hubbard her father, being that she was dropped off into the Sea Org so young.
And I'll tell you why I say that. Norman Starkey. This is a guy that everybody looked up to at one point because he was the captain of the Apollo, the ship. Yeah. And I talked to that guy one time and said, do you know what's going on? I mean, with David. And he goes, I know, but I'm waiting for Hubbard to get back.
There was a lot of people there, Leah, that believe that.
This is the guy, the toughest mother in the Sea Org.
I never even considered this.
This is very real.
They think he's coming back. And it's so easy to say, you crazy mother. It's so easy to say you're crazy as. But at the end of the day, if you go back to the indoctrination of thinking that L. Ron Hubbard is the savior of mankind, or that he's your father, you're going to do everything to protect it. They don't believe in David Miscavige, but they believe in L. Ron Hubbard, and they're waiting for his return. And if she's alive and well, Shelly Miscavige believes that, I think. Why do you think that no one has done anything about this?
The FBI said, okay, would you help us on a raid? Absolutely. And I think it's a waste of time. And she goes, everybody said that. Everybody's told me the same thing. Why? And I said, they're believers. They are, you're going to walk in there, but they're all going to go, hey, we're doing this on our own accord. The guys that are in there, you're going to get the occasional, one that blows you out of there every once in a while. But that's why it's a cult.
Bada bang. That's why it's a cult. Almost matches exactly the sentiments of what Jenna Miscavige said about her Aunt Shelly. She's not missing. She's just in a cult. And there's a ton of other high-level Scientology Sea Org workers who are in the exact same situation of working on secret, remote, relatively isolated bases with limited contact with the outside world, not no contact with the outside world. And their job duties don't require them to interact with anyone else who doesn't also work on the base. And these bases are self-sufficient. You can live there, you can work there, you can eat there, you can sleep there, you can. They're little worlds unto them, unto their own selves. Now, guys, when we talk about someone being like confined, this is a loaded word, but it's going to come into play later. Confined to a Sea Org base. I was in the Sea Org in Los Angeles working on L. Ron Hubbard Way. Okay, that is only one block. That street is one block long. There are two buildings on that street that are connected. I'll call it three buildings. No, it is two buildings. The building where you live and eat. You live in the upper floors. You eat in the cafeteria on the first floor. Then there's the building where you work. And these buildings are actually connected to each other. Okay, for the Scientologists out there, I'm talking about main building in Asho on L. Ron Hubbard Way. You could say that I was confined as a prisoner for an entire year in a building. I was on a street on one block in Hollywood. And yet, strictly speaking, if you wanted to take liberty with these words, you might be able to justify using those words, but it would be dishonest because I wanted to be there. And when I no longer wanted to be there, there was a lot of inertia keeping me there. There's a lot of stickiness that keeps people from leaving the Sea organization. I stayed in the Sea organization much, much longer than I actually wanted to, but not because anybody was physically keeping me there, And so, Scientology's international base in Gilman Hot Springs, California is like over 500 acres. Shelly was removed from her post where she spent much of her time at that base, and she was sent to an even more secretive base in Twin Peaks, California, that's closer to 50 to 60 acres. Beautiful acres in the wilderness. So Shelly's confined to a base she is allowed to leave, a base she's been seen outside of very frequently recently, at the movies, at the restaurants, you know, chiropractor, salon, the whole. Shelly Miscavige is not being held anywhere. Okay. Now, so in Leah Remini's own TV show, she just explained to you that David Miscavige didn't do it to Shelly. She did it to herself because she would have wanted to, because nobody can stand working with David Miscavige. They also told you where Shelly is. That was earlier in the show. I didn't actually share that clip with you, but it was earlier in the show. They tell you where she is. They tell you how she got there, and they tell you why she wants to be there. What's wrong with that narrative? Why isn't that good enough? Why isn't that good enough? Why would some people, well, it's really just one person at this point, continue to beat the drum that any ex-Scientologists who try to explain to you that Shelly's a Sea Org member, she's loyal to the aims of Scientology, she's loyal to L. Ron Hubbard, she thinks he's coming back, she's a true believer in the mission of Scientology, she's working at one of the most prestigious and secret Scientology bases. It's a beautiful base, self-sufficient. She wants to be there, and she has freedom of motion. She can and does leave the base frequently. Why would some blogger, some wannabe journalist, but blogger, try to tell you that all of the ex-Scientologists who try to explain it to you well and in a helpful manner, they're just still brainwashed cult members? But you should believe me. You should believe me, the journalist who understands Scientology better than any ex-Scientologist and understands Shelly Miscavige better than the people who actually knew her, understands Shelly Miscavige better than ex-Sea Org members who understand the culture, and understands Shelly's plight better than her closest friends and family members. What would be the intention of someone who wants to continue to try to create a narrative that any ex-Scientologists who try to explain the real situation with Shelly are just still brainwashed cult members who don't have any empathy for people like Shelly Miscavige? It's truly unbelievable. So I'm going to share with you the blog post, and we're going to dissect this, and we're going to break it down, because it is the reason for our video this evening. Do I have it shared here? I do. Okay, let's look at it. The Underground Bunker blog. This was just yesterday. 20 years, Scientology leader David Miscavige made his wife, Shelly, vanish. I mean, right off the bat, Tom DeVocht already said David Miscavige didn't make his wife vanish. Shelly orchestrated it herself so that she wouldn't have to continue working with this tyrant. But don't trust Tom DeVocht, guys. Trust Tony Ortega. Now, guys, one of the reasons Tony Ortega is so hated by so many people in the ex-Scientology community is he has this pattern of behavior of pitting ex-Scientologists against each other. He'll take a quote from this ex-Scientologist and use it as a weapon against another Scientologist, when the truth is these ex-Scientologists don't disagree with each other. Tony just uses people and their opinions and isolated quotes to forward his own agenda. Tony thinks no one understands Scientology better than him. It doesn't matter if you spent your entire life working for it. Tony's the expert. So don't trust Tom DeVocht, trust Tony Ortega. All right, I'm going to shift to a different view here. Okay, according to our sources who were actually there at the time, it was near the end of August or the beginning of September 2005, 20 years ago this week, when Shelly Miscavige obtained a car from the motor pool at Scientology's international base near Hemet, California, and made a desperate drive to Los Angeles to save her marriage. Okay, so I mean, there's at least some circumstantial evidence here that Shelly Miscavige was able to go wherever she wanted, whenever she wanted, at least when she was David Miscavige's assistant. Shelly and her husband, David Miscavige, lived together at the international base, but for several months, Dave had been working at Scientology offices in LA on a special project and was staying in an apartment. I'm going to try not to read every single word here, guys. Dave made a brief trip back to the base, blew up over some things that Shelly had done in his absence that he believed were disloyal to him, and then he returned to LA. Shelly, determined to follow him, took a car and left the base. She was never seen there again. Okay, very loaded language, very intentional framing, never seen there, as if, oh no, where'd she go? She's not where she should be. It's very intentionally being framed in a scandalous way that does not actually align with Sea Org culture. Now, ex-Sea Org members are no longer in the Sea Org, but they understand Sea Org culture, and understanding the culture is very important to understand Shelly's actual condition. Okay. Sometime later, some people at the international base could see that Shelly's mail was being redirected to a smaller compound that Scientology operated about 60 miles away in the San Bernardino Mountains near a place called Lake Arrowhead. The small compound, which housed maybe only 12 or 15 people, is the headquarters of a super secret Scientology subsidiary known as the Church of Spiritual Technology. Most Scientologists were unaware of CST, and even most of those familiar with CST and its work, which is to archive L. Ron Hubbard's words and lectures, had no idea where its headquarters compound known as Twin Peaks was located or its other vault locations. All right, we're fine so far. Based on multiple lines of evidence, including public records, we believe that Shelly Miscavige has been confined to CST's Twin Peaks compound near Lake Arrowhead since that day 20 years ago when she made her desperate drive from the INT base. Okay, the loaded language here is confined. Not only is it loaded, it's actually inaccurate. Tony knows it's inaccurate. He uses the language anyway. Tony knows Shelly Miscavige is allowed to leave this base. Tony knows that these bases are self-sufficient, okay? If someone is considered in trouble or a flight risk in Scientology, they would never, ever, ever be allowed off of the base, even with an escort. There would be no reason. All of Shelly meals could be provided to her at the Twin Peaks base. Shelly could get tons of sunlight and exercise at the Twin Peaks base. If they really wanted to, they could bring in a chiropractor and a masseuse and a salon person to the base if they wanted to pamper Shelly, but also keep her trapped on that base. Tony Ortega knows perfectly well that Shelly Miscavige has been seen eating at restaurants. He may not know, his information may not be as recent and extensive as the information that me and Jenna have, but Tony has the info. He pretends he doesn't. Okay, she's not confined to the base. The accurate language would be, she is posted at that base. Her job is to work at the Church of Spiritual Technology. Her job is to work at that base, that beautiful 50 to 60 acre base in the mountains in Twin Peaks, California. I had a shitty low-level assignment working on L. Ron Hubbard Way. I think I went for a year straight without even being able to go 300 yards away from the building. Okay. That's the nature of the Sea organization. My job didn't require me to leave the block. Shelly's job doesn't require her to leave the base, and yet she's still allowed to. Okay, let's go. That sort of gives you an idea of Big Blue is L. Ron Hubbard Way. CST is where Shelly works now, and the INT base is where she used to work. Okay. Shelly has been seen outside the compound on numerous occasions. Okay, but he tells it in a way where you'll see. 2 years after she was banished there, in 2007, she was allowed to go to the funeral of her father, which took place in San Pedro Harbor. We know this because her sister, Suzette, was living with Mark and Claire Headley at the time and told them that she saw Shelly on the boat at the service. Shelly was in the presence of her handler, a woman named Ann Josem, who had been sent to Twin Peaks with Shelly, along with another woman, Shelly's auditor, Antonella TC. Okay, to interject here, the loaded language here is handler. Handler is not a thing that exists in Scientology. You might get the impression that it is based on the way Tony uses it. She was sent there with her handler. So if you are in trouble in the Sea Org and you are considered a flight risk, you will be put under watch. This is not a secret. All Sea Org members know this. I've been put under watch many times. I don't think I was ever assigned to watch anybody, but that's because I had a post where they didn't want to take me off of that post and use me for things like that. When you are on watch, they are with you 24/7. Okay. They go to the bathroom with you. They usually don't sleep in your room because their job is to sleep outside the door of your room so that it is impossible for you to escape. So, is it possible that if Shelly was still considered a flight risk and they wanted her to go to her father's funeral, that they would send someone with her for the purpose of keeping an eye on her? It is totally possible. But please keep in mind, this is 2 years after she first got in trouble. I have never known of a Sea Org member to be in trouble for that many years. On a Sea Org base, there's usually a rule that Sea Org members are not allowed to go off of the base by themselves, even ones who are not in trouble. This is a rule that many executives are able to violate all of the time. Even when I was in the Sea Org, I could violate that rule and get away with it. But when you have someone as high profile as Shelly Miscavige going to a family event where people are going to be there who may be anti-Scientology, maybe trying to capitalize on the fact that it's Shelly Miscavige, it's not crazy that even if Shelly wasn't in trouble, that they would have sent 1 or 2 people with her. It's just not crazy. That's all I'm saying. And there's no such thing as the word handler in Scientology. I realize Tony uses the word in quotes, but I just wanted to say that. Okay. Suzette, Shelly Miscavige's sister, told the Headleys that Shelly met her in the bathroom on the boat in order to get away from Josem for a moment, and quickly told Suzette that she was in trouble and wouldn't be able to help her anymore. Shelly, in other words, knew in 2007 that she was a prisoner, and she's a prisoner today. Those 2 sentences linked together is like saying 1 + 1 = 5. Okay. What's not included in this story is that Suzette was asking Shelly for help with something that she thought Shelly, because of Shelly's position of power, Shelly would be able to help with. Shelly basically said, I'm in trouble. Let me get the quote right. I am not going to be able to help you with this anymore. And then Tony goes, in other words, Shelly knew she was a prisoner. What? That's not what that means. That is not what those words mean. That is Shelly saying, I am no longer chairman of the board's assistant. I have been busted down to a lower post. I no longer work in RTC. I no longer have any sway with Scientology management. I can no longer intervene on your behalf in the case of an injustice. I no longer have the ear of my husband, David Miscavige. I can't help you with the thing you're asking me for help with. That is all that means in the Sea organization. That doesn't mean you're a prisoner. This is like one of the most dishonest couple sentences I could have imagined a so-called journalist writing. I'm going to read it again. Shelly quickly told Suzette that she was in trouble and wouldn't be able to help her anymore. Shelly, in other words, knew in 2007 that she was a prisoner, and she's a prisoner today. This is not how journalists write. And this is why so many ex-Scientologists don't consider Tony Ortega to be a legitimate journalist, because Tony writes in a way and uses people and uses quotes and uses information to forward his own agenda and center his own opinions. And he gets involved in the personal lives and conflicts and beefs of the people he's supposed to be writing about. And one of the reason he's doing this article is because in order for Tony to continue to have relevance in the ex-Scientology community, he has to continue to suck Leah Remini's ass. And Leah Remini is the one that reported Shelly missing. What Tony continues to miss is that Leah's television show is also the one that explained she's not really missing. We know where she is. We know how she got there. We think it's what she wanted, and we know she wants to continue to be in Scientology. So who is it that's really still beating the drum about Shelly Miscavige being a prisoner? And guys, that's why I keep talking about this. It doesn't bother me. I don't want to get it twisted. It doesn't bother me in the least that people ask, where is Shelly? I think it's amazing that people who know nothing about Scientology, they do know that the leader's wife is missing. I love it. It's such a great entry point into a greater discussion about Scientology. It's also a great way to troll David Miscavige and Scientology. And that's how I use it. That's how I use the question, where's Shelly? Is to explain the greater context of the whole thing. Shelly's not missing. She's in a cult. Let's talk about what it means to be in the Scientology cult. And it's so weird because honestly, Tony Ortega is only one of the only people who will respond to ex-Scientologists talking about all of this accurately and honestly by trying to shame and blame and critique them for not really caring about that Shelly's missing. It's got nothing to do with caring. It's about knowing what we're talking about and not perpetuating this lie that she's being held in a dungeon. And that is what Tony is saying. He's saying she's a prisoner. Shelly Miscavige is not a prisoner. Okay. All right. Leah Remini had been friends with Shelly, and she did not know that something was up until Shelly, something was up with Shelly until she went to the wedding of Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes at a castle in Italy in November 2006. Uh-oh. For anyone paying attention, they're going to notice something a little suspicious here. If you're actually friends with someone, how do you not notice anything is wrong or that they're missing for an entire year? And this is what people ask me all the time. Was Leah really friends with Shelly? No. Leah was an acquaintance of Shelly. No public Scientologists are friends with David Miscavige or friends with David Miscavige's wife. Leah Remini never hung out with Shelly Miscavige. Leah Remini never had Shelly Miscavige's phone number. Leah Remini and Shelly Miscavige never went out to a restaurant and shared a meal together or ever visited each other's house or anything. Because Leah Remini was a celebrity, she got Christmas cards and maybe birthday cards from Dave and Shelly. Leah would run into Shelly at Scientology's international events, and maybe they would chit-chat for a little bit. That is not what it means to be friends with someone, okay? So if Shelly was removed from her post and banished to the CST Twin Peaks base in late 2005, and Leah didn't even know that Shelly wasn't on her post anymore until an entire year later, then I guess they weren't really friends, were they? Okay. Also, Leah stayed in Scientology for another 7 years, another 6 or 7 years, without ever seeing or hearing from Shelly Miscavige. So wait, you don't hear from your friend for 8 years? I mean, even a Scientologist, if they thought another Scientologist actually went missing, would probably report it to the authorities, because even the Church of Scientology would probably report it to the authorities if a Scientologist actually went missing. I mean, you want to be like a manhunt, I mean, like actually missing, right? No, okay, let me clarify. If the Church of Scientology woke up and one of their Sea Org members was missing, they would not call the authorities, because that Sea Org member didn't go missing from the earth. They just escaped from the Scientology base back into the real world. Scientology would never call the police there. But if they had reason to believe that Sea Org member did not escape, right? They didn't flee Scientology. This was a good Sea Org member that really wanted to be there. If Scientology thought that a Sea Org member had been kidnapped or abducted or something, they actually would call the police. And so that's true for Scientologists. If they thought someone literally went missing and not just a Sea Org member who was reassigned to another base or put onto the RPF. Do you see what I mean? That's why I try to explain this the way that I do. Okay, let me see. What was I saying there? Oh yeah, was Leah Remini really Shelly Miscavige's friend? I mean, what do you guys think? If Shelly was removed from her post in late 2005 and Leah Remini didn't even know anything was amiss until late 2006, how could they possibly have been friends? How could they have been anything more than acquaintances? And then if Leah doesn't report her missing for another 7 or 8 years, how could that be someone who's possibly a friend? It's a professional acquaintance. It's because Leah is a celebrity Scientologist and Shelly Miscavige is the wife and the assistant of the leader. Okay, let's keep going. Leah Remini had been friends with Shelly and didn't know that something was up with Shelly until she went to the wedding of Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes in November 2006. Leah noticed that Dave was there without his wife and that he was playing grab ass with his personal communicator, a woman named Larisse. Leah filed an internal Scientology report on Dave that got her sent to the Flag Land Base in Clearwater, Florida for 3 months of reconditioning that she had to pay $300,000 for. She has written that the wedding and seeing that Shelly was not there was a key moment in her eventual defection from the church 7 years later. That's an interesting characterization because, anyway, I'll skip that train of thought. So check this out. What was just described in this paragraph explains why the PR stunt of reporting Shelly Miscavige as actually being a missing person was performed. It was performed as a little bit of retribution. And I respect the game. I don't hate the player. Okay. Leah was put through Scientology procedures that are damn near close to literal torture and brainwashing for the scene that she created at Tom Cruise's wedding. It wasn't just the Shelly Miscavige thing. Scientology had Leah Remini invite Jennifer Lopez to Tom Cruise's wedding. J-Lo was Leah's very good friend. Leah's dad, J-Lo's dad was actually a Scientologist, but J-Lo's never had anything to do with Scientology. But Scientology wanted J-Lo at the wedding, and they wanted J-Lo to join Scientology. When Leah got to the wedding, they had Leah and J-Lo sitting at separate tables. Well, Leah hit the roof and said, F that. We're not sitting at separate tables. I brought my friend here. We'll be sitting together. Thank you very much. This made Katie Holmes furious. And then, of course, so basically what happened is Katie Holmes and a bunch of other Sea Org members and Scientologists wrote a whole bunch of knowledge reports on Leah for basically ruining the wedding, which she didn't ruin the wedding. They were just all being drama queens about this. And Leah was subjected to, honest to God, it's damn near the closest thing I could ever imagine to torture and brainwashing, other than, actually being held in some like crazy, KGB camp or something like that. So because Leah was so thoroughly punished for what happened at Tom's wedding, when Katie Holmes then left Tom Cruise and left Scientology, Leah Remini basically demanded an apology. And my mind is blank right now as to whether she actually got that apology. I think she did get the apology. And I think Dave even offered to have Tom Cruise give her the $300,000 that she paid to Scientology back. Because in Scientology, if you get your money back from the church, you're basically kicked out. So Dave was like, I can't give you a refund, but Tom will give you the $300,000 back. And I think Leah Remini said no. I can't remember. But anyway, there was just so much freaking drama that Leah was subjected to in the aftermath of that wedding. Not all of it was about Shelly, but some of it was about Shelly. Now, Leah continued on in Scientology for another 7 years without giving a good goddamn about Shelly Miscavige. Okay. And that's not even a criticism. There was nothing to worry about. It's not the business of any public Scientologist what's happening with Scientology executives. It never has been, and it never will be. And even the Sea Org members who worked with Shelly at the time and knew her and worked with her and grew up with her, like Mike Rinder and Tom Vocht, when those guys left the Sea Org, none of them said a single freaking word about Shelly Miscavige. So just let that sink in. Just process that. No one who actually knew Shelly personally, professionally, worked with her, lived with her, grew up with her, none of them ever reported Shelly missing, because they knew she wasn't missing. That's why it's like, I don't fault Leah for doing the missing thing. I don't at all. The fault that I'm finding, and Leah does this and Tony does this, is trying to blame and shame ex-Scientologists for explaining, she's not like really missing, right? And it just makes, I know I'm repeating myself. You guys know I love to repeat myself, but it makes me furious on a number of levels. One of the level is, who the fuck are you to tell ex-Scientologists what they can say? Okay. That's no. That's a no. And also, remember your own damn TV show where you said where Shelly was. You said she wanted to go there. You explained how she got there. And you explained why she wants to still be there. Remember when you said that with your own words? So don't go around blaming and shaming ex-Scientologists for just continuing to explain what you already explained on your own TV show. And for some reason now want to pretend that you never said all that shit. Okay. So that's why I get worked up about this stuff. Okay. Let's keep going. All right. Tony goes, we first wrote about Shelly missing from the public world of Scientology in 2012. Okay. Oh, yeah. The rest of this is we're skipping this part. This is pointless. The police did meet with Shelly in 2013. They took a set of fingerprints, but the fingerprints weren't taken very well and were inconclusive. They never went back to get a second set, but they closed the case. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, he continues to repeat this absolutely insane sighting of Shelly Miscavige by a non-Scientologist. It's been completely and utterly debunked. He keeps repeating this story. It's not important. Tony says, based on our sources and documentary evidence, we still believe that Shelly has spent almost every day of the last 20 years at the small Twin Peaks compound in the San Bernardino Mountains, cut off not only from the outside world, but even from her own family. I would be remiss if I did not explain that some of the early reporting Tony did on this made it very clear he was getting his information from some of the non-Scientologist members of Shelly Miscavige's family. I subsequently, years later, spoke to some of those same family members, and they explained that Shelly Miscavige only stopped talking to them when it became evident from Tony's reporting that those family members were talking to Tony. Do you see how this works? Shelly Miscavige is not going to talk to anyone, family members or otherwise, that she believes is leaking information about her to the press. Okay. Okay, let me see. There was something else about this paragraph that I wanted to comment on. Oh, yeah. Framing loaded language. The Twin Peaks compound that Shelly has been isolated to is literally one of the biggest bases as any Sea Org member anywhere in the world could work. Okay. Your average Sea Org member is restricted to the building or the block that they work on. So to even frame Shelly Miscavige, she spent almost every day of the last 20 years at the small Twin Peaks compound. It's 50 acres, you guys. So let's take a Sea Org member who's worked on L. Ron Hubbard Way for 20 years. There's plenty of people who work on L. Ron Hubbard Way who have lived and worked there for 20 years. In fact, there's about 800 of them. Okay. So you could say, based on our sources and documentary evidence, we still believe that the Sea Org members on L. Ron Hubbard Way have spent almost every day of the last 20 years in these small buildings in this one block in Hollywood, right in the middle of Los Angeles. And you'd be like, oh, you mean they're Sea Org members? Yeah, that's what it means to be a Sea Org member. Shelly Miscavige is living a life of luxury and leisure at one of the biggest, most beautiful, private Sea Org bases in the world with hardly any responsibilities and the freedom to go eat at restaurants and go see movies and go get her hair did and go get adjusted at the chiropractor. Even poor Shelly Miscavige that Tony Ortega wants you to believe. Does she even know it's Christmas? Has Shelly Miscavige seen the sun lately? Does she know people are worried about her? Even poor Shelly Miscavige that Tony Ortega calls a prisoner is living a life 20 times better than any other member of the Sea organization. Stop expecting ex-Scientologists to shed tears for Shelly Miscavige. She's the Ghislaine Maxwell of Scientology, and she's living pretty at the CST base in Twin Peaks, California. Give me a break. Okay, let's see. Oh, I'll give you another example of Tony just taking a quote from an ex-Scientologist and weaponizing it. Okay. And why has Shelly Miscavige been stuck at this base? This poor, poor woman, because David Miscavige has decided, like he has in other cases, that he cannot trust Shelly anymore and that she is an enemy and that he will keep her in her mountain prison so that he never has to see or think about her ever again. Well, it's funny because there's some truth in what he's saying there. He's just framing it in an absolutely ridiculous way. David Miscavige, well, first of all, he doesn't still think she's an enemy. That was 20 years ago. Okay. No, SEERG members don't stay in trouble for 20 years. Okay. Okay. Let me keep my thoughts straight here. I'm going to tell a little story. There was David Miscavige, when he decides that he hates you, he hates you. Okay. There was a SEERG member that worked at the international base named Danny Barram. He was, I never knew Danny well, but he got busted out of the int base for something, and David Miscavige decided he hated this guy. He busted Danny Barram down to L. Ron Hubbard way. And I think Danny might have fooled around with a woman out of wedlock, and that's like the worst thing you can do in the Sea Org. It gets you in a lot of trouble. I mean, if you're Danny Masterson, you can rape a bunch of people, and that doesn't really get you into trouble. But if you're a Sea Org member and you fool around with an without being married, get in a lot of trouble. Anyway, he decided he hated Danny Barram. He busted Danny Barram. I think he sent him to the RPF. I think Danny either finished the RPF or he got reprieved. Anyway, he ended up in the Sea Org at one of the organizations on L. Ron Hubbard way. He was put onto some professional Scientology auditor training. He worked his way through it. He was doing really well. He was reestablishing his production record as a Sea Org member. There was a big push to send trainees to Clearwater, Florida to do some higher level auditor training. Danny qualified, even with his, troublesome ethics history at the international base. He was deemed qualified. There weren't very many people who were qualified. And so Danny was sent to Flag for full-time higher level auditor training, which is considered an award. Like that's considered a privilege. Okay. Danny gets there. He's there for years, but not years enough. He had not finished his training, but he was doing very well. And so Danny is in Clearwater, Florida at the Flagland base, and David Miscavige is on the base, and Danny runs into David Miscavige. And never mind the fact that the trouble that Danny got into was years earlier, and he'd paid his dues. He'd paid his dues, and he'd worked his way back up. And Miscavige was like, "What are you doing here?" "Well, sir, hi, sir. I'm here on the Class 9 auditor training, for the CLO West US, or I think it was the CLO. Yeah, it was the CLO." And anyway, David Miscavige didn't give a damn that Danny had paid his dues and worked his way back up. He just freaking hated this guy. And he immediately had him shipped back to LA, where Danny had to return in disgrace, not finished with his training, with absolutely no explanation other than David Miscavige just doesn't like the guy. That's how David Miscavige is. He's horrible. And, so that's what I said. The essence of what Tony's communicating here is true. Like, he sent Shelly away because he didn't want to see her anymore. He didn't trust her, and he didn't want to see her anymore. So strangely enough, with the way the Church of Spiritual Technology is situated in the sort of command structure of Scientology, Shelly being sent to CST technically isn't a demotion. It's just a transfer. But in the real world, it's a demotion. Right? If you're David Miscavige's assistant and you're removed from that post and removed from RTC and sent to CST, it's a demotion. And so it was a punishment. She was sent there as a punishment, but that doesn't mean the CST base is someplace where they send people to punish them. The CST base and the staff members who work there are some of the highest ranked, most highly qualified and eligible Sea Org members in the entire Sea Org. Any other Sea Org member would kill to get promoted to one of the CST bases and have that be their job. It just so happens that for Shelly, it was the way of her husband to be like, get out of here. We'll send you to CST, right? Okay. Okay, so Tony's about to use a quote from Shelly's former brother-in-law, John Brousseau. John Brousseau said in one of these episodes, David will keep her where she is until she dies. Yeah. So like, okay, let's see how Tony let's see how Tony characterizes this. Okay. JB said JB was married to Shelly's sister for 16 years. Okay. Dave will keep her where she is until she dies. Okay, he doesn't actually go on and editorialize about that. Shelly Miscavige, in order for me to respond to this sentence, I'd really just be repeating pretty much everything I just said. You could say that exact same thing for all of the executives who are currently working at the international base who've been removed from their posts and put on a bunch of busy work. Guillaume Lacerve was the executive director international. He's now doing busy work at the international base. Ray Midoff was the senior case supervisor international. He's now doing busy work at the international base. Mark Yeager was the commanding officer of CMO International, literally the highest manager that existed in Scientology. He's removed from his post and doing busy work at the international base. You could say about all of those executives, David Miscavige will keep them where they are until they die. That would be true even if those people were in good standing with David Miscavige. They're already on performing the highest posts or working at the highest base in Scientology. There's nowhere else for them to go. There was a guy, there was another former international Scientology executive. I think his name was Peter Specker. For some reason, David Miscavige decided he hated this guy too. No. It was a different guy. Ken. It was Ken. Peter Specker was one guy. There was another guy. When I worked in the Sea Org on L. Ron Hubbard Way, there was a Sea Org member who worked in the basement of the advanced organization in the folder archives. Okay. He had been, before being assigned to work in the basement in the folder archives, one of Scientology's highest level international managers. David Miscavige decided he hated this guy, and he had him busted down to the lowest position, one of the lowest positions possible at the advanced org on L. Ron Hubbard Way. It was widely known by the Sea Org members working on L. Ron Hubbard Way that Sea Org member was never going to be allowed to get off of that post forever until he died. And that's a guy working in the basement under lower level, under the street level, under L. Ron Hubbard Way. So you might go, okay, well, Aaron, that definitely makes it sound like Shelly could be stuck on that base until she dies. There's nowhere else for her to work. She's already working at the highest level base. She already has the comfiest job. Why would Shelly want to go anywhere than working at the Twin Peaks Scientology compound as far as her permanent job, right? Okay, so but you can take over. Dave will keep her where she is until she dies. Okay, but is it a great place to work? Is it a great place to live? Is she allowed to come and go? Is she happy? Does she want to be there? It's irrelevant whether Dave wants her to stay there until she dies. Does she want to stay there until she dies? Is there any reason to think that she doesn't? All right, let's see if there's anything else relevant here. Oh, here we go. Some former Scientologists are ambivalent about her. This has always been the case. They remember that Shelly helped Dave run Scientology and could be a ruthless Sea Org taskmaster in her own right. Oh, she just helped him run Scientology. you mean the human trafficking, sex trafficking, child labor cult? Yes, she helped him run Scientology. They just, while running Scientology, they covered up so many deaths and suicides and rapes and sexual abuse. But sure, she could be a mean executive sometimes. But if only we cared about people as much as Tony Ortega cared about people, we would see Shelly Miscavige in a different light. Oh, goodness. Okay, but for how long will California and San Bernardino County law enforcement allow David Miscavige to get away with imprisoning his wife for 20 years? Well, since he's not imprisoning his wife, she's a Sea Org member, voluntarily working at a Sea Org post. Do you see what I mean? It's just so dishonest. It's so dishonest. He's got his head so far up Leah's ass, it's going to turn into a diamond pretty soon. Shelly is now 64 years old. She has sisters and other family members who would like to communicate with her and see her. Tony, the fact that you're saying that you and that you are presenting yourself as someone who is speaking for Shelly's family members is why she will never talk to those family members again. Okay. So you continuing to put that out there in the world is why Shelly doesn't talk to those family members. So I don't know why you keep doing it. Leah Remini would still like to know what happened to her friend. Yeah, the friend that she didn't report missing for 8 years, and would like to offer Shelly the opportunity to come out and rejoin the world. See, this is the thing. This is what Jenna Miscavige explained about her dear Aunt Shelly. Okay. Shelly was of the world. She had the private jets. She had the vacations. She had the scuba charters with her husband. She was hobnobbing with celebrities and Tom Cruise and John Travolta and movie premieres and NASCAR races and being waited on hand and foot. Shelly Miscavige is not a stranger to the world. She is not Kimmy Schmidt. She's Ghislaine Maxwell. They are not the same. Okay. Leah Remini would like to know what happened to her friend and to offer Shelly the opportunity to come out and rejoin the world. How many more years will the number one question we get and that Leah gets be, where is Shelly? I think the number one question all ex-Scientologists will get until we all die or Shelly dies is, where is Shelly? And I think it's great. And I think it would be great if the people who came up with the PR stunt of reporting Shelly missing would join in on the honest conversation of what does it really mean when we say, where is Shelly? Anyway, the irony is that everything I'm saying was already said in Leah Remini's own TV show. And yet Tony Ortega, doing Leah Remini's work for her, will run around and blame and shame any ex-Scientologist who actually tries to repeat that message. It's very strange, you guys. It's very strange. Okay, let's see. A few starred comments and we'll wrap this up. Abigail, always good to see you. Gifted 5 channel memberships. Thank you so much. Constance June, if it was really urgent on Shelly missing, Leah would not have waited all those years after she left Scientology to report Shelly as missing. Sharona says, I don't understand promoting this where is Shelly thing like she's in danger. It makes me take anything else they say with a grain of salt. When a gimmick becomes a ruse, you lose people's trust. Actually, I really like that point that you made, the way you isolated that single point. Saying where is Shelly or Shelly's missing, I think is a great troll. Pretending like she's actually in danger is when it jumps the shark. There's a reason why not a single soul who ever knew and worked with Shelly Miscavige in Scientology, out of Scientology, ex-Sea Org, current Sea Org, staff, ex-staff, nobody who actually knew Shelly reported her as missing. There's a reason, guys. And guys, Mike Rinder and Marty Rathman and Tom DeVocht, when they left the Sea Org, did they say, oh, hey, by the way, Shelly's probably being held against her will somewhere? No, because they knew that was never what was happening. Okay, Marcy Pokes gifted 5 channel memberships. Thank you so much. Let me check something here, you guys. Let me check something here. I'll tell you what. Do you guys want to hear something crazy? I am 16 subscribers away from hitting 250,000. About half the people who watch my videos aren't actually subscribed. If you're watching this video right now and you're not subscribed, maybe consider subscribing. And let's see if I can get over 250 by the end of the night. All right, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. That is it for me for tonight. So much more to come tomorrow. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not,